Hello, everyone, and welcome to this, your Overseas Home Q&A on French viewing trips. My name is Julian Benson. I'm a writer here at Your Overseas Home, and today I'm joined by Chris Summers from Beaux Villages Immobilier, an estate agent with more than 37 years experience helping buyers find homes, but then in the last 5 years in Southwest France as a particular focus. If you've bought a home before, you may be used to doing all of the legwork yourself, finding the properties, calling up agents, booking viewings, and traveling to appointments. While you can take the same approach when looking abroad, you can also go for something which is more of a guided viewing trip, and that's what we're going to be talking a bit about today. It can be quite different from a viewing trip that you organise yourself, and so it's good that we've got Chris here to talk through a lot of the detail of that, how these trips are organised, what you can expect from them, when you should even start looking to book them. So yeah, in today's Q&A, Chris is going to be telling us much more about how they work, their advantages, and really how you can get the most out of your journey. As I said before as well, today is a Q&A. So I'm going to be asking questions I've got prepared, but please do write in your own questions. There's a panel on the right side of the screen where you can write your questions in, and towards the end, I'll start drawing from that to put your questions to Chris as well. This is a really good opportunity to talk to someone who spends all of their time taking people around houses and homes in France. He's will have sold hundreds. I don't know if we could probably even go into the thousands of properties over the years. And so, I mean, this is really quite a rare opportunity to talk to someone about sort of the business, how it works, what people should be looking for when they're looking at a home, all these sorts of things. As a last housekeeping matter, if you need a reminder of anything that gets discussed today, we are recording this webinar. It will be available to stream on the website, and we'll also be able to send you a link afterwards, which is going to take you to this recording. That can be obviously if you want to go back and rewatch it for yourself, if there's any details you missed. It's also great for sharing around with people. If there's anyone else you know who's going to be looking to move to France, or has even just sort of discussed it as a possibility and wants to know a bit more about it, this might be a really good introductory video to send off to them. But anyway, yes, so Chris, let's dive on in. First, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I was really, if you're about to tell us a little bit about sort of how you became an estate agent, how you moved to France, and what you do as a day-to-day as an estate agent, that'd be really, really helpful.
Yeah, sure. Just quickly back me up. 37th year in the industry this year, and last 5 years in France. The rest of that was in the UK. So I've seen both sides and can understand both sides. I became an estate agent. I was actually a master baker by trade, would you believe, till I was 20, and then got fed up with their sociable hours, so decided to do something else and went as a trainee into a little local firm and worked my way up over the ranks over 10 years and up to a director level in the UK before I moved to France. I moved here for what I thought would be a slower pace, but business has been fantastic. So the pace hasn't been slower, but the lifestyle's brilliant. So I wanted a big change of lifestyle, just to slow down a little bit with the need to chase everything, the traffic and all that type of stuff. I wanted to get away from that and all the driving around the busy roads, and we've certainly achieved that. And France is a wonderful place to live. And if you're thinking of making the move, I know it can feel daunting and tough sometimes, but the great thing about us, we can literally cover everything for you and get everything. We have someone that can, and it doesn't have to be daunting. We just need to be very open about it and ask lots of questions. That's the key thing. And work with an agent that's very communication based. Some agents aren't quick in communication. Try and work with one that comes back to you promptly, quickly, via WhatsApp, whatever your preferred method is, because that way things can be organised much quicker and better.
That sounds great. Well, so let's dive into some of the questions. I mean, really, the first one is going to be about just fleshing out a bit more of what it was that I mentioned in the introduction. That when you're looking at properties overseas, you might have a different kind of viewing trip than what you'd expect at home when you're looking locally. Could you tell us a bit more about how a viewing trip overseas is different, what it is that you'd be offering someone who got in touch?
Yeah, obviously the first thing about viewing trips is the looking at the houses is a much longer process, because the houses France is a vast country, and people will contact us to want to look at a house here, which is there, another one that's an hour and a half there, an hour and a half up there. So geographically, you're looking a lot further afield than you would in the UK. In the UK, you tend to move to a town for a reason, be it schools or work or to be near family. But in France, that's not always the case, and people look in vast areas. So especially the trip, the viewings take a lot longer than they would. The other thing in France is that an agent will accompany you on all of them. In the UK, a lot of sellers do their viewings. You'll meet the seller, not the agent, unless it's vacant and they've got keys. But here, it's almost standard that every viewing is accompanied by the agent who knows the property. So you've got all the expert there. You can ask all the questions you want. Looking around houses takes longer because you've got more to look at. You've got land, you've got outbuildings. So the whole process is a much longer. You might go and visit a standard house in the UK and be in there for 30 minutes. You're likely to be at a viewing with us for an hour to hour and a half per property. So it's the whole process is much longer, and it's obviously it's just much more spaced out, more driving, more traveling, and it's a nice experience, but it's a longer experience.
And I mean, so when it comes to sort of going from one property to the next, do you tend to sort of book in multiple viewings of one person, taking them from property to property, or do you tend to pick people up from one viewing and take them to a property? How does it get organised?
It depends on the individual circumstances. Most people, when they come here, they'll hire a car because you really need a car for your own benefit as well when you're here. But we tend to go in 2 cars. We tend to meet them at certain points because they might have a viewing in between ours with another agent. So being in our car, we don't tend to go in our own car, take them in our car that often. We often pick people up from the airport. If they're not having a car, they're meeting someone who's going to show them around. A friend is going to drive them around. So we might pick them up from the airport and take them to that friend. But normally we'd meet them at the first contact point and meet them there, and we'd follow each other to viewing, as I say, because they might want to go for lunch in between. If they're not doing it with us, they might want to meet friends in between, or they might have another viewing booked with another agent, which we obviously can't take them to. So they tend to follow us from property to property and work that way.
And actually, in terms of like advice, this is going to be a how long is a piece of string sort of question, I suppose. But like, what would you recommend in terms of numbers of properties people should try and view in a day when they're doing a viewing trip overseas?
I think for to be able to take every property in, I personally wouldn't recommend for more than 3 or 4. Some agents will try and cram them in, but I think if you do 3, if you're starting at 9 in the morning, you got one at 9, one at 11, one after lunch at 2, and then one at 4. You're sort of done by 5:30. I think 3 is enough because you want to refocus on them when you get back to your base at night. You want to remember them. And I think if you look at 4 or 5, when there's such vast things to look at with the outbuildings and the land, it's very easy to forget what each one had. So I think 3 a day is enough to sit there at night and actually go through them again with your partner, make notes about them. Let's talk about this one. Let's talk about that one. And you might rule a couple out of that day and you've got one that you particularly like. But I think if you view more than 3, mentally it's quite tough because there's a lot to look at and a lot to see and a lot to take in.
I suppose as well, there's also the thing of, as you're saying, if you're spending longer at the property, hour, 90 minutes, and you potentially look at properties with a fair distance in between them, when you're factoring like travel time and the fact you're on unfamiliar roads, like it'd be easy to put in too many viewings to a single day. Yeah,
very much so. And if you do too many, it puts you under pressure. And you're cramming them in. You run, and also you're potentially going to be late. Will potentially be late for some of the viewings because they run on if you're under pressure. And I think it's nice to view in France without the pressure. If you're here for 2 or 3 days, you can view 6, 7, 8 properties over that period, over those 3 days. And I think a lot of it is when you first contact us is how well we get on, how well we really drill down to what you want. People come here and buy in France. They also want to look in a very vast territory. But if we can home in on a town you like and an area you like, so the houses aren't as far apart, it's much easier to get more viewings over a period of 2 or 3 days. But it's look, it's not easy, but we like people to feel comfortable with it and enjoy the experience. So 3 a day is enough for me.
So actually, one of the things you mentioned there is sort of when people first get in touch and then sort of selecting the properties that they're going to go and see. I mean, do you tend to find when people get in touch, it is because they found a particular property and then you would suggest others, or should people come to you with I know this area is somewhere I'd like to buy? Like, how should someone come to you?
Yeah, all of those approaches will work. To be fair, they're all good examples. We have people just contact us exactly the latter part you said there. They like an area, they got a price band and a bit about the house they want, and we can drill down and look at what best ones we've got for them, which ones will suit them best. Some people have a specific property they found on our website and they'll email us about a specific property, and that will tell us the sort of thing they're looking for, so we can then recommend others that are similar to that, offer the same type of things. And some people just make a general inquiry through the website that we're coming out for a viewing trip in 4 weeks, we're going to be in this area, we've got a budget of 200, and they're very generic. But what we'll spend time doing is having an initial phone conversation with the buyer and really trying to get to know what they want. And often, sometimes people send a list of 10 they want to view, a big long list, vast area. By the time we've sat down and had a proper chat about them, about what they really want, what's really important to them, we can rule 5 of those out, because we know the house won't offer what they've just asked for. So we can rule some of them out. That brings it down to 5 that we know they're going to like, they're going to suit their requirements, and we'll spend better time looking at 5 than we would look at 10 that they'll walk into 5 and just not like them the minute they go in. That's just a waste of everybody's time. The more information you can give us about your wants, ideally your must-haves, no discussion, you must have these things you would like, and things you can be a little bit more flexible on, and then we can really help you and home in on the right house to show you.
Sounds great. And so actually as well, one of the things you said there, you might get someone who reaches out, they're already coming for a viewing trip in a month's time or so, and they can fit in some more properties. How far in advance would you recommend someone is getting in touch? When should you start planning your viewing trip?
Yeah, I think most people will contact us, probably a couple of months before they're coming out and say this is when they're out. And our initial conversation will decide what they're looking for. And then we'd normally say 2 weeks before your trip, because properties will sell. Some of the things you like may be sold. So we'll say 2 weeks before your trip, send us a definitive list of what you want to look at with Beaux Villages, the BVI reference numbers, and we will then take that and work out a mapping route where the first one will be, to make sure we're traveling the right way, we're not going in all different directions. We'll map out the route so we're going together on the right route to maximize the day. But 2 weeks before your actual trip, just get back in touch, confirm the ones you want to view. We'll confirm if they're available or not, if they've been sold, and the ones that are still available, we'll then plan that trip, the dates and times, put a full schedule together and send you that schedule on an email with the first meeting point, which will often be in the office or might be outside a Mary building or something, depending where the house is. But we'll send a full itinerary through as to where we're going and what we're doing and where we're meeting.
Actually, so again, something you said in that was that properties, obviously, that you've put viewings in for may sell in the time between sort of that original booking and when you arrive.
Yeah.
How much? I live in London, and the process between sort of the first viewings and first offer made, and by the time sort of the viewings are then sort of closed off, is generally quite a tight window. If property sellers in France have a viewing coming up in 2 weeks' time and they've received an offer, do they tend to allow that person to view in 2 weeks' time, or will they sort of close it down if the offer is good?
Yeah, what we have here and what Beaux Villages do particularly is, once we get an offer on a property, we ask both parties to sign a letter of intent. It's not a legal document, it's a good faith document confirming they want to buy, they want to sell, that's the price agreed, and any conditions agreed, like furniture, other things that might be included in the sale. Once both parties sign that, we would remove it from the market. So it's because everyone's agreed that that's what's going to happen by signing that form. If that form isn't signed, if the LOI has not been signed, the letter of intent not been signed for some reason by either or party, we will keep it available and we'll continue to do the viewings. The only flip side to that is, if someone makes a cash offer on a house in France at the asking price with no conditions, it legally has to be agreed and accepted and come off the market. So there's no gazumping in France, which is fantastic. You can't be gazumped in France. So if an asking price offer is made with no conditions, no funding, and it's cash, we've fulfilled our mandate, and the house has to come off the market and no one else can view it.
That's great. Sorry, just one of these things where, like, when you start hearing sometimes how other countries operate things, and it's sort of like that's actually a really good system. That helps obviously a huge amount with buyers and also for sellers.
Yeah, we don't have any offers over or guide price or anything like that. It's a fixed price. If you meet that price with no conditions, it comes off the market.
Well, I was also going to ask there. So yeah, so terms like offers in excess of, or here's a guide price range, those aren't things that you'll come across when looking in France. There is
no. You might do down in Provence or prestige homes, chateaus. You might get a little bit of that there, but normally there is a set price.
Awesome. And is there a time of year that you would recommend people look? I mean, or is it something where it's like whatever time of year you head out, there's going to be a different range of properties and you may fall in love with them?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think everyone likes to view when the sun's out. So the busiest periods of viewings are sort of April to September. That's the busiest period. Um, and that's probably when most properties come on the market, because a lot of people put their market on at the beginning of the year and get it ready to showcase in those months. So that's the most generic time people view. I'm a fan of winter viewings because I think if you view a house in the winter, you see it at its worst. You'll see if there's any, because a lot might be an old house, an old barn conversion. If there's any leaks, the access road, you'll see what that's like in the winter if it's raining. And if you love it in the winter, you're going to absolutely love it in the spring and summer. So whilst it's not as nice viewing in the winter, you may well get more out of the trip and get to know the property more by viewing in the winter. So it's a bit of it's lovely to view it when the sun's out and the gardens are looking beautiful, but the raw part of the house you'll probably see better in the winter.
Fantastic. And actually, one of the things you mentioned earlier was sort of the uh, having clients come to you and sort of have their list of must-haves, their wants, their, and whittling that down to sort of help narrow the search.
Yeah.
In terms of other things that people should have ready when they come to speak to you, is it sort of proof of funds, or do they need to have sort of a mortgage in principle? What sort of documentation should they have?
Yeah, if you find a property and you like it, we will be requesting proof of funds if you're buying cash. And that can be a bank statement, or if it's in a pension fund or wherever that money is, we'd be wanting proof of that. If you have arranged a mortgage in the UK to buy in France, which isn't the easiest thing to do, or if you're raising funds on your own property to buy in France, we would want to see the agreement in principle you've got for that, because we don't want to have a seller take a house off the market only to find out that 2 months down the line the buyer hasn't got the funds, and the seller's taken the house off the market, missed out on lots of viewings, and is now going to have to wait another 4 or 5 months to complete a sale. So identification, things like proof of home address from the UK, because when you make an offer, if you've got a utility bill from the UK, something like that, you'll obviously have your passports with you. We tend to take copies of passports, but proof of funds is a key one. If you want the house off the market, proof of funds is probably the most crucial one to get that, to achieve that goal.
Awesome. And as well, like I don't know if this is an unfair characterization of viewing trips when seeing overseas, but I think because you've had to travel quite a long way and you've booked these trips out quite far in advance, and you're being sometimes driven between properties, they can feel like there's a fair bit of pressure to make an offer. In reality, how often do you find people do make their offers on a viewing trip, or do they tend to sort of go home, think about it, and make the offers later?
Honestly, I think probably 70% of the people we show houses will make a decision on that trip, not through any pressure from the agent. We were chatting about this off air, and my opinion is, as an agent, that you can't make someone buy a property. There's no point in trying to be forceful with it or trying to win the offer. You promote a property to the best of its ability. You promote the location, the benefits of the house, and you can't make someone make an offer. Some people fall in love with houses in France, and they often buy from the heart, not the head. But I think 70% will offer on the trip, because I think it depends. If they're coming out on a bit of a fishing expedition, they're not sure if they're going to be moving to France or not, that'll be the 30%. If people have made the decision they want a holiday home, or they're definitely emigrating to France, they will make an offer on the viewing trip. And about 70% of the trips we do will make an offer on that trip.
So, Abjad, I'm going to, because I'm aware of time, and we've had quite a few questions coming from viewers, I'm just going to start asking a couple of those. And also, just to say, anyone at home, we've got about 10 minutes left or so. So if you've got a question, really do make sure it's in the chat. It's a great opportunity to ask Chris directly some of the things that you're wondering about when it comes to a viewing trip overseas. And so actually, one of the things which I don't want you to direct anyone to any competitors. Obviously, it's one of the things, though, when people are looking overseas, we've had a question over here, is how do you make sure you're sort of seeing what's available in the area? I mean, are there sort of catch-all listing websites and portals where people can go and see listings from multiple places, or should they just be going to each individual agent's website?
Yeah, if you're a member of Your Overseas Home here, you can see the Beaux Villages portal on there. You can click on the portal there, and I think a link will come out for it after as well, so you can see all our properties that we've got on the market. But I think places like Rightmove Overseas, Zoopla Overseas, Place in the Sun, Green Acres, Le Bon Coin, BNC, there's probably 7 or 8 websites that will hold most agents' stock, most agents' mandates. Ironically, most of our leads come from our own website. So do have a look at the Beaux Villages website, because that's where everything is on there, all the information about the house, taxes, everything else. So most of our leads come through that directly, and that's good because we can control what goes on there and how the property looks and feels on there. But same with the UK. There's 4 or 5 main portals in the UK that people look at, and it's no different in France.
Sounds good. And actually, and specifically when it comes to Beaux Villages, like, can you tell us a bit more about what's the territory that you cover? We've talked Southwest France, but what does that sort of entail in terms of top to bottom?
Okay, we kind of cover the Nouvelle-Aquitaine area. And to give you a concept, Nouvelle-Aquitaine is the same size as Austria. So that's how big it is. That's how big France is. That one region out of 10 is the same size as Austria. We cover from the Creuse area, which is a bit further north of Limoges Airport, and the Souterrain Way, that's a bit further north. And then we go down right across through the Dordogne, through the Lot, the Gironde, down into Provence, right down that way. So we cover a huge territory. But Southwest France is a big area. But it's mainly the Lot, the Dordogne, the Lot, the Gironde, the Charente, the Haute-Vienne. Obviously, Nouvelle-Aquitaine is the department. Within that is lots of little regions which we cover all the way down. It's a vast area. It's the most popular part. Southwest France is the most generic part people tend to move to from the UK, from America, Belgium, Holland, places like that, and we cover all of those areas.
And I imagine as well that sort of, because just from some of the places you listed there, there's a huge range in terms of landscape, but also sort of prices. And so if someone was to book a call with you, they could say, this is what our budget is, and you could probably guide them to, well, you should probably be looking in this part of the region.
Yeah, we're quite different at Beaux Villages. Some agents, if you want to look at 5 properties, it could be 5 different agents you meet. We don't work like that. You have one point of contact with the agent, and they will show you most of the properties. If they can't show you one because you suddenly decide you like one that's 2 hours away, they might ask their colleague to meet you there and show you it. But notoriously, you'll have one point of contact making all your arrangements for you. You won't have to speak to 5 different agents to make those appointments. But yeah, pricing, if you go from the Creuse is much cheaper. The Haute-Vienne's a little bit more expensive. The Dordogne is a little bit more expensive. The Lot, the Gironde are more expensive again. Provence is very expensive. So yeah, if you go from the Creuse all the way down to the Provence, it just goes up and up in price. Yeah.
Okay. And so actually, so we've got someone who's asking that they're going to be trying to see about 20 properties over the course of their viewing trip. Based a bit over what you were saying earlier in the webinar about sort of how many viewings you should try and see in a day.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a reasonable number to be looking at? And also, how long should they be planning to make their trip if that's how many properties they'd like to see?
20 is a lot, and I assume it's over quite a vast area. The best way to work with that, really, that's a week's trip. 20 viewings is a week's trip. But I think people make the mistake of not identifying the area first. They look in lots of different areas because they're not sure where to go. But you really are better off coming on holiday for 3 or 4 weeks, going around different areas, find one you like, then focus your search there. You'll find a house much quicker. You'll do less viewings to find that house, and it'll just be much less stressful. A lot of people come here, don't realise they might need a station. They buy a house, they realise there's no station nearby. So that's you can change the location, you can't change the house. So the location needs to be right. Really work on finding the location you like first and focus on that. But 20 viewings, that's a 7-day trip easily.
Yeah. And actually, I suppose it's the sort of thing where it depends, I suppose, how far people are traveling in from as well. Whereas that sort of element of, are you turning this into a holiday as well as a viewing trip? And sort of you've come from the US, and so you're going over 2 weeks, and you're maybe focusing your house search at the start of the trip and then having more of a holiday at the end. Yeah. But as you say, that's a very large number of properties to be seeing in a short space of time.
Yeah, you also need to leave yourself a couple of days at the end, because if you drop a short list from your initial visits, there might be 4 you want to revisit to have a second look, and you need to keep a couple of days at the end to do that, to go and look at those more deeply, stronger, spend more time there, spend more time in the town, in the area. Leave yourself a couple of days to book second visits in. Otherwise, you go back to the UK with one visit and you might have missed things, or, making an offer on a house you visited twice is a lot better and a much more concrete thing to do.
And actually on that, how many, it's sort of the done thing that people are allowed to return and have second viewings and third viewings even, or how many times would you expect someone to look at property between sort of their I suppose their very first step through the door and maybe even completing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it depends on the size of the property. If you're buying a much bigger property with a lot more to it, a small chateau or manoir, something like that, you're going to want to visit maybe 3 times. But most people will do a second viewing, and a second viewing is enough to spend a bit more time there on the second one, maybe 2 hours. Have a good look around. Have a look around on the land on your own, the outbuildings on your own. Have more time walking around alone without the agent. The agent will be there, but won't be taking you around. And you have more time to think and chat to your partner about it. So yeah, second viewing is normally enough to make a decision.
That's good. And also, I suppose, like on those viewings, are there any tips you'd recommend for what people should be looking out for? Are there any things where it's sort of unique to French homes, or something which people outside of France may not be aware of when it comes to, you see this in a house, this is going to be something which is going to mean work further down the line?
Yeah, the weird thing in France, and it's nobody has a survey done. People buy houses without surveys. Banks don't even do surveys to mortgages. That sounds very weird, and we've all done it. I bought 3 houses in France and never had a survey done, and I would never have done that in the UK. It's really weird. But so the diagnostic reports will give you a certain amount of detail. Obviously, if you're in rural France, if you're buying in the country, you're going to be on a septic tank, and it's important to find out when was it put in. If it doesn't conform, you're looking at about €15,000 to replace it. So ideally, if the agent's done his job properly, the price should be reflecting that. If it's not, you need to allow that in your offer. You need to allow for the fact that you've got to have the septic tank done. The roof is another big area. A lot of houses are very old. A lot of barn conversions are old. Sometimes they've renovated but not replaced the roof. So if it goes right up into the attic, if the house is renovated right up to the attic, have a good look for water stains, any leaks on the roof, or get someone to look at the roof. Most agents will have a local artisan. They can send around to check the roof for you and do a report for you. But yeah, there's the diagnostics will tell you a lot of things, but septic tanks and roofs tend to be the things that are your biggest expense if you have to make a big change.
Fair enough. And so yeah, that also feels like the sort of thing where if someone arrives at a property and immediately asks these things, they're going to seem like a canny customer. So
yeah,
that's good
yeah.
to do.
Keep the agent on their toes as well, so that's good.
So actually, someone's asking, there's some specifics to the questions which I'm not going to put out into the webinar, but more that they are wanting to come and view properties in October. They would need to sell their property at home before they could make their move overseas.
Yeah.
How open are French sellers to people who are going to be part of chains who haven't yet sold a property but they're viewing in France?
Yes, it's very difficult. It's a fine line. You'll find that someone like Beaux Villages will happily take you around if you've got a house to sell in the UK. French agents probably won't. They'll be less likely to want to do that because they don't necessarily understand the whole. Because you can't have if you're selling a house in France, not the UK, in the compromise, you can have a clause for that sale. So if that sale falls through or doesn't happen, you're not contracted to buy the house. But you can't have a clause for a house in the UK in a French contract. So the house needs to be sold or is under offer. I think some English sellers that understand the system in the UK, if you viewed a house, they might say, well, okay, we'll accept your offer and give you 4 weeks to sell. We'll take a house off the market and give you 4 weeks to try and find a buyer, which is fair. Not all will do that. The French definitely won't do that. French sellers won't do that. But English sellers that know the system, know what it's like, have made the move themselves, probably done the same. They're more understanding. Not all the time. Some might need a quicker sale, but I think it's down to the agent to, if you offer the asking price and you're very keen on it, I think we can often talk to the sellers and get a bit of leeway time with it off the market while you try and sell. But we'll certainly do viewings. We'll certainly do viewings with you, but not everybody will. So don't be surprised if people say we're not doing viewings till you've got your house under offer. Don't be surprised if you hear that.
Fair enough. And I suppose even if someone's able to attend a viewing, then it is that moment when they are making that offer, the seller will need to be told this is the situation, and they may well at that point say,
we have to put all the information to the seller and make sure they're fully aware what their buying situation is. And ultimately, it's the seller's call, but we can try and help and persuade the seller to give you a period of grace while you try and sell. We can certainly try that.
I'm aware we're pretty close up on time, so I've got 2 more questions which I'd put to you if we could, but and everyone else who's been in touch and hasn't necessarily got their question answered, we can be in touch after the webinar and continue through email. I will also say that a great way to pick this up is to go to Beaux Villages' website. We will be putting the link up shortly, and reaching out, starting those conversations. A lot of what we've spoken about today is obviously that you get in touch with Beaux Villages, you start locating the areas you might be interested in, you start looking at properties you might like to see, and then from there you can start a conversation where you'll end up booking in viewings and getting to know where you might be able to buy a house.
Yeah, the agent will take full control of it. A good agent will take control of it. And if you've been on this webinar, you want to deal with me personally, when you make an inquiry, just ask if you can come through to me, and they'll send your questions to me or any buying request to me, and I'll help you through it. Yeah.
And actually, one of the questions I was going to ask, I think that it's pretty much there as you answer this. It's they're saying that they're struggling to sort of limit their search to a specific area, and they were asking for advice really on how to consider the different characteristics of regions. And I suppose that sort of is something which comes from a conversation with an estate agent.
Yeah, if there's, whether it's weather dependent or other things, travel stations, whatever areas you want, we can tell you what areas are like. We can give you reports on them. We can help you ascertain whether the climate's right for you, whether the town's right for you, if it's got the facilities you need. Some people move here with health issues, need a hospital nearby, and need doctors in the town. All of that we can provide and tell you where might work for you and where might not.
So, and actually, so the final question, the question was, can you take photos and videos on a viewing, which I assume in many cases is going to be okay. I was wondering if I could almost expand that question slightly to how often do you provide videos for people who haven't yet managed to make the trip out to the house?
Yeah, I've got my own YouTube channel, which has got a lot of followers. I do a full commentary video of every house, so you can have a full walkthrough of the house, and I sell a number of houses purely from the video, and they don't come out till they sign compromise, because it's a full walkthrough. It's a mixed bag. Some agents will do videos. Not many French agents do videos, and probably half the English agents you deal with will have a video. But you should certainly, before you book a trip or before you come out, you should be given a full brochure with all the pictures, all the tax implications of the house, all the FOS stuff, all the diagnostics. You should have all that information before you make any offer on a property. Don't make an offer without all those informations, because that could determine what offer you make. Certainly if you view through myself or Beaux Villages, we'll make sure that happens. But certainly with myself, you'll get a viewing on every single property you wish to look at. So if you're not in the country, if you can't come to view directly, if you're in America, you want to do initial viewings via video, we can do that. We can do a live video tour at the house, a WhatsApp video tour for you at the house at a time to suit you. Not all agents will do it, but if it's a good agent, they communicate well, they're promoting the houses well, they'll have all of that for you.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for your time and for talking us through a really wide range of questions there. But it's one of those things where I think it's really helpful for people to be able to get a fuller sense of what it is to go and view a property overseas. For everyone at home, thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this webinar, if you've learned something from what Chris is able to share with us today, please do review us on Trustpilot. It's a really good way for people to be able to find out what we do and share sort of the reputation of your overseas home. The other thing I'd like to tell you about today is that we've got the virtual property show, which is going to be taking place on the 4th of October this year. It's basically a day where we bring together lots and lots and lots of the professionals you will need when you're buying your property overseas. And you can attend webinars like this, or you can have one-on-one meetings with different members of those companies. It's basically everyone you would need to buy a house overseas in one place for one day, and it takes place all online. So you don't need to even leave your house, and you can tune into the things which are most relevant to you. But really, the thing which I want to end on the most is Chris represents Beaux Villages. He's told us a great deal about how they take people around properties, the sort of service they provide, both from viewings to eventual sale. Do check out their properties on our property portal. Do go to their website, book viewings through their portal or through our portal, but also arrange that call. Find out where in France might be the perfect place for you. All of those links have been appearing as I've been speaking, but also do go to youroverseashome.com. You'll be able to find a recording of this session. You'll be able to find all those links again. That is everything from me. Chris, thank you again for all your time and answering all those questions.
No problem.
Awesome. Well, and thank you everyone at home for tuning in, and I hope you have a lovely evening.
Cheers. Thanks everybody. Thank you. Bye bye.